So Chris and I have been on a dragon film streak recently, and after we watched Dragon Slayer the other day, this just happened to pop into my head. It was like, I haven't seen Reign of Fire. I could swear we watched it when we were dating like 13, 14 years ago, but she doesn't remember that. And I know the last time I watched it, I was at my grandmother's house in like 2003, maybe 2004, something like that. So it's been a long time since I've watched this, but I remember this being a very good movie, Reign of Fire, with a very young, well, much younger Matthew McConaughey and Christian Bale. Gerard Butler's in this. Um, just it's a great cast of actors. And Isabella, is it I forget her last name. I haven't seen her in a movie in a long time. Um, but just a great cast of characters and just in a really original take on a dragon film. And I gotta say that for a film that came out in like 2002-ish, the special effects have still held up over the years. The dragons in particular are phenomenal. And I remember there's this one shot which I had remembered, and it happens midway through the film when one of the dragons, and we'll get to that here in a minute, but it's the male dragon, the big daddy of them all, is they're on a convoy going making their way to London, and the male dragon finds them and takes out the convoy. And there's this scene where the dragon is like over the convoy, like just like sweeping its wings as it moves down parallel to the convoy, and it just torches everything in its path, and then makes its way to the castle, and like gets on top and puts its wings around it and puts its head down, and it just shoots fire straight down the top of the castle. Like, there are some amazing visuals here for people who love really good dragon films. I'm not very comfortable right now in my chair because I have a Lucas, if you guys can see, he's behind me, so I'm sitting on the edge of my chair doing my review instead of kicked back like I normally do. There we go. So the premise of this movie, super original. Basically, it's early 2000s, and Christian Bale's character is getting off school. His mom is the head of a mining operation that is digging more tunnels for the metro or something, and for the London tubes. And he goes down in there as she's working, and some of the workers open a tunnel, and they like taunt the little kid, go on in there with your flashlight and see what you can see. And he goes in there and sees the dragon, which like spits in his eye and then gets out and escapes. And it turns out that's the male dragon that's been in hiding for a very long time. And it's got a very quick and easy introduction from there, because it's literally just Christian Bale's character narrating the fact that they had been sleeping for thousands of years, who knows how long, but essentially, these were the creatures that created they wiped out the dinosaurs, created the Ice Age, burned everything to ash, killed off everything, and then had to go into hibernation because there was no food source, and they were just waiting for the cycle to renew again. And with humanity at peak capacity, the dragons are back, and they basically kill almost everyone. And the movie picks up some 20 years after that, and we find him as a young adult now and dealing with this situation where they're living as survivors. A group of maybe 100 of them with a bunch of kids living in a castle in England, and surviving by the skin of their teeth, and trying to just wait out the dragons until they die off, because they literally are starving to death, and they've killed off most of the population, and the dragons themselves are dying. And along the way comes Christian Bale's character, who is in a tank and has a bunch of men, and supposedly he came over from the United States in a big ass airplane, and they're on their way to London to take out who they suspect to be the big daddy male, because all the ones they've been killing since then have been females. And he doesn't buy any of it. He's like, "You've never killed a dragon. That's BS." And over the course of, some of the film, turns out, oh yeah, they know how to kill dragons, and they kill one of them in front of him and all of his um, survivors at the castle. But he's not a nice dude. Like, he goes to conscript some of his men, and forcefully, it's a draft, and needs more soldiers to get to London. And that's the convoy sequence when everybody dies in the convoy. And that's when the male comes back and looks for revenge for them killing the female. And that leads him to going, well, I'm one of the only survivors. I'm going to go with this psychopath. We're going to go to London, and we're going to take out the last big bad daddy dragon. Now, it's a very short, concise film, like an hour and 40 minutes, so we're not looking at anything major here. overall, it was really good. There was one point where Chris and I chuckled because there's a line of dialogue that was a little off. There's this sequence when they've got a helicopter and they've sent their helicopter up and they're putting down these spikes to do a triangulation grid. And one of the spikes goes down. The guy on the motorcycle that was driving it is down, and his character runs up on a horse and like puts the spike in the ground, and he starts off on the radio. Christian Bale's character starts off on the radio going, Piscopelli or whatever the guy's name is, are you there? And this guy picks up and he's like, who are you? And he says, it's me, my character's name. And and he has no clue that he rode in on a horse, but then he goes, you've got 1,600 pounds of bait, just ride it straight towards me. And I just laughed because I was like, that is a very bad, I mean, I understand why they left it in because it's a quick way to just establish that, he knows that he's got a horse and he can ride the horse in, and the dragon's going to chase the horse. But it was just so evident that like 10 seconds before he didn't know who was on the other end of the line. So he has no way of knowing that there's actually a horse, that he rode a horse to get there. Um, but otherwise, the dialogue is pretty good. I think the thing I like the most about the early part of this movie is there's a lot of good camaraderie between Christian Bale and Gerard Butler, who are really good friends. And there's this sequence where they're entertaining the kids in the castle, recreating the Darth Vader and Luke Skywalker fight scene. It's the White Knight and the Dark Knight. Um, and it was just very well done. And I think that this is a really fun movie. It was also completely different than anything he had been doing for a while, because he, especially during those years where he had gotten basically just doing lots of romantic comedies, and eventually broke away from that and started doing really serious and dramatic roles. And this is one of those early roles he took before he got into that romantic comedy rut. I don't want to call it a rut because he still did, like, have you ever seen Fool's Gold? That's a great, phenomenal movie, and he did some really good romantic comedies. And Christian Bale has done a ton of good movies over the years. He's a really, I think, underappreciated actor. Obviously, a lot of people know him from the Batman films, but he did a lot of stuff. If you've never watched, is it Empire of the Sun? Was the first movie he did when he was a kid, and Steven Spielberg directed it. John Malkovich is in it. I think Ben Stiller's in it. Like, it's got a lot of people in it. This is one of those types of movies where it's got a bunch of these actors before they got super famous, and just giving really good performances, I feel. And on top of that, you've got these amazing visuals with the dragons and the fire and everything else. And also, just on top of that, I feel like it's one of those films where you don't need a lot of things explained to you because it's very straightforward. And like I said, it's a very original take on dragons. And the way it's left, it was left kind of open-ended in that there could be a sequel if they wanted to, but it didn't do well enough commercially to justify it. But the I think for my money's worth, this is one of the better dragon movies out there. If you've never seen this, go ahead and do so immediately. Like, it's an early 2000s film, but the CGI has held up incredibly well. It could have been released yesterday on Netflix or something. Like, the CGI is really good. The dragons were very well done. Like I said, especially that shot down the convoy, and then when the dragon gets up on top of the castle and wraps its wings around it, sticks its head down the top of the castle, just like shoots fire straight down. It was like, oh, snap. Um, so very well done. Great film. If you haven't watched it, I would give this like a 9 out of 10 just because I love all the actors and everything else. The only thing to take away from it was that little bit of dialogue, and perhaps the fact that for me it was too short. I would have loved a longer movie, but overall, 9 out of 10. Great film. Thumbs up. Oh yeah, by the way, I should add, if you haven't already done so, like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. I do lots of other films and TV shows here, plus video games. To keep me on the air full time, all you got to do is drop a super thanks on this video or join as a member to support. Don't forget there's a Discord, daily streams at 11 a.m. Central.